reversing day and night on Tiran Island in the Red Sea at age 20 years old, and a reflection and critical thinking about what I did and what I didn't do 50 years later. So the location of Tiran Island is in the Red Sea, and it's called Bear Giant Rock. Israel briefly took Tiran Island during the Suez Crisis and again in 1967 and following in the Six-Day War in 82. Tiran Island now is in Saudi Arabia, which got it from Egypt, which got it back from Israel. So, and next to Tiran Island, there is Napier Island that both Saudi Arabia kind of own both of them, or control both of them. In 1970, I was assigned to serve as a commander of this remote island. I was the only officer on the island, and my soldiers called me and wrote me as a sheriff of the island. They wrote it kind of on my little structure where we slept, kind of the sheriff of the island. There were about 15, 20 soldiers rotated every 3-4 weeks. I stayed on for much longer. I loved it there. Relevant to the story is that this was all before cell phones and before internet. I'm talking about 1970. Military speaking, it was a very safe place, and we were there just to show presence, to provide military observation on entrance to the Red Sea. So it was about presence. Besides taking good care of basic minimal military duty, I spent much of my time wandering around the island, this lifeless speck in the sea, with my bare feet, a diving knife strapped to my cuff, and with a bathing suit, and with friendly sharks and huge sea turtles and a gorgeous reef. The power that I had was huge, and I was the only officer on the island, and I want to use it to help my soldiers to become critical thinker. As you will see, I regretfully abuse my power with the intention of doing good. I found the islands have a profound, complex nature. At that time, I was musing about boundaries between day and night and wonder whether the distinct extreme separation of day and night is an artificial construct or created by human and their ancient ancestral cultures, or is it really inherent part of human nature? To satisfy my curiosity, I introduced critical thinking, and profound dismay to my soldier, I experimented reversing day and night. At that time, I was musing about the boundaries of day and night. So I experiment with inverting it by reversing our daily routine and the customary way of life that most human beings on the planet and many animals kind of following. And we had breakfast at sunset, we had lunch at midnight, and we had dinner at sunrise. I was the only officer in high-ranking soldiers on the island, so they had to kind of obey my orders, even though it didn't make necessarily too much sense. So while I was quite engrossed in my orthodox research and critical thinking and exploring human nature, I noticed the incredible resistance and outrage of my soldiers who perceived the experiment as seriously deviant and actually abusive. And reflecting back, I can't blame them for it. So when I thought about other experiments, the next group of soldiers that came, I wanted to explore another question. Are clothing necessary, or why clothing is necessary in a warm weather such as we had on the island? So I gave the orders for the soldiers who are not on military watch and not on a military duty to be naked when they are out of their tents or their housing. Most of them did not like it one bit. I wonder why. What I learned over the following years was, probably not surprising, that most of my soldiers under my command were deeply resentful of my anthropological experiments and did not sign in for that. Most of them found it abusive and demeaning. However, in my mind, I wanted my soldiers to question everything, to become true critical thinking. I wanted to do good, but in fact, I abused my power. I regret abusing my power, and I'm sorry for abusing my power. And I did fail to introduce critical thinking to my soldiers. So neither of these two experiments on the island lasted more than 2 weeks. But I indirectly pay heavy price for that, military speaking. Years later, I indirectly heard some complaints of some and very few appreciation of my anthropological experiment. But I know it was a failed introducing of critical thinking, even though I meant well to ask the basic question, what is it about day and night that we take for granted, and what about clothing?